German level 1. So today I will present to you a part of the work that we have been doing on the evaluation of microplasticity in copper under multi-axial loading. So this work is in a larger context. The objective is to have a more precise idea of what kind of plasticity is developing under complex multi-axial loadings. In fact, what you are trying to do is to have microstructurally based fatigue criteria, and then we, as I should show you after, we are using some numerical models based on polycrystalline plasticity, and the idea when we are trying to go to a very complex loading is to have more information on the microplasticity. Usually people have a lot of information under uniaxial loading, but under multi-axial loading the data in the literature are quite rare. So we try to have more information. And one of the reasons is that when you look at how fatigue light assessment methods are built, in most cases you have some hypotheses coming out from the modeling, and if you consider critical plane approach, for example, you will have a strong hypothesis which is that single slip occurs even for complex loadings. So the idea of this work was try to validate, to evaluate if such hypothesis was effectively happening physically on the material, or if it could be reconsidered in the model. So globally, we are using three types of analysis. First, we are doing 3D modeling on synthetic microstructures that will be computed with complex loadings. We'll evaluate the microplasticity at a small scale, so that small is the focus of the presentation today. And then we do post-processing of those data, trying to evaluate the local stress fields and how to use those local stress fields into a multi-axial fatigue criteria. So here today, we just want to have a more precise analysis of what is the development of microplasticity, the role of intergranular slip or intergranular slip, and the role of multiple and single slip activity. So the material that is studied here is an oxygen-free high conductivity copper. It's a high purity copper. You see the microstructure here with the grain size, which is more or less 40 micron. And the standard shape for the specimens, fatigue specimens that will be loaded under complex loadings with the initial mechanical parameters. You have a strong cyclic hardening on this material coming from 15 MPa yield stress at under tensile loading, and then up to 90 MPa for the cyclic yield stress. The loadings we have been investigating are these ones. So you have tension and torsion, which are quite standard loadings. We have in-phase tension torsion with, so here you have the phase, with two different ratios between the axial stress and the torsion stress. So you have a ratio of 2 and 0.5, which means that in one case you have a predominant axial stress, where in the other case you have a predominant torsion stress. And we did 45 degree and 90 degree out of phase loading, so you have the standard shape of the loading. And we have been analyzing the plasticity development in three different zones. First, the zone that corresponds to the central zone of the specimen, so that's where you have the stress that is related to, which is associated to the endurance fatigue limit of the material at 10 to the 6 cycles. So this is the central part of the specimen, but when you have this type of specimen, you could also go to some less loaded zones, so you will have lower stress levels, and you have the very near threshold, PSB threshold stress level development of plasticity. So we can go from a well-developed plasticity in 10 to the 6 cycles area, and then to a much less lower plasticity development to see the initial stage of plasticity development. This is typically the kind of observations that we had by SEM. We did two types of observation, optical and SEM. This is typical observation that we had for different type of loadings here. So that show you different things. First thing is what we consider our intragranular slip activity, well-developed PSB into a grain. You have in some loading cases, and I will show you after the statistics, you have well-developed multi-axial, multiple slip activity in the grain. You can see clearly here that you have two slip systems activated in one grain. You have in some areas some more localized plasticity next to the grain boundary, here or here, for example. So the idea was trying to have some statistics on this plasticity development. So where, how much do I have intragranular slip activity, or multiple slip activity, or grain boundary slip activity, or promoted by grain boundary. If I look in the near PSB threshold zone here, we observe two types of slip activity: intergranular and granular type slip activity, and grain boundary type. So grain boundary one are promoted by the presence of grain boundary. Typically, what we will have here, you have grain which is here, and the grain boundary, due to the elastic mismatch, starts or initiate the PSB development. And in some other areas, you have a well-developed PSB all along the grain, on the whole diameter of the grain. For the observation we had, it was quite a good mix between the grain boundary and intergranular slip activity, 60% of intergranular versus 40% of grain boundary, and this was more or less independent on the stress level of type of loading that you apply. So we did not see a big influence on the loading type on the development of this plasticity at very low level of plasticity. And the grain boundary play quite a significant role in that case. When you go to the intermediate zone, you have a bit of multiple slip occurring. So here you can see that in that case you have a little bit of plasticity of multiple slip, but the multiple slip is very low compared to the other type of gliding. So it's mostly intragranular and grain boundary type slip activity, and the multiplicity of the slip systems here, it's not very well pronounced, it's not very well developed. And if you move to the central zone here, you will see that you start to light up the multiple slip activity. So you have more multiplicity of the system that is activated in the case of more well-developed plasticity. And you see here you have the intergranular, the multiple slip activity here that is pronounced for the torsion case. Here. So the highest is also the torsion case. It's more or less depending on the phase, so it's going lower when the phase increases, when you have an axial stress that is predominant over the torsion component. And when you have a torsion component that is predominant over the axial stress, you have something which is not increasing much, except for 90 degrees of the phase, but globally we observe that we have not strong sensitivity to the phase in the case of high torsion stress. If you look at the multiple slip activity, you see that exactly what I said just now. Sorry. So it's lower with the phase, predominant for the actual stress, and stronger when you increase the shear stress. So the question for us was a bit to understand more why we had such sensitivity on the results. So what we tried to do is try to evaluate this from the point of view of the microplasticity. So what we first observe quite quickly when you look at the pictures is that you have much more plasticity development when you have a shear component that is predominant. So the more shear component and deviatory stress you have, even if you are at the same endurance limit, at the same fatigue life, globally we have much more plasticity development. To quantify this, we did two types of analysis. The first analysis is experimental, is trying to have an evaluation of the local plasticity by means of EBSD. So by EBSD, you can evaluate the misorientation in the grains. And the kernel misorientation gives you an image of the local distortion of the grain. That is an image of the local plasticity. So effectively, when you go from the pure tension case, you see you have a low plasticity development, you have a low misorientation degree. When you go up to a torsion case, you have a much higher development of local plasticity. That was one of the first assumptions. The second way you can evaluate the effect of the loading level on the plasticity is to perform numerical simulations of these loading cases and try to see how much plasticity developed depending on the different loading cases. So we did 3D microstructure modeling on which we input the different type of microstructure texture. The texture we input in this computation is the one that was measured by EBSD. So you can measure by EBSD the texture on your material, we input it into your aggregates, and then you can use some specific constitutive equations that allow you to take into account the anisotropy of the material and the fact that plasticity is developing along particular slip systems. So crystalline plasticity is one of the most adequate tools to do something like this. So that was we used with such 3D models where we have semi-periodical conditions on the edge of the aggregate, and we have external free surface and the bulk of the material here, and we analyze data here on the free surface of the material. The loading levels that we apply are the same as the one that we did experimentally at 10 to the levels, stress levels that correspond to 10 to the 6th in terms of effective life. And the code that we used was the code developed at the École University. So first, we try to compare, if you remember the picture, to see what we have in terms of plasticity, microplasticity beyond measurement of EBSD misorientations, and we observed effectively that what we had in terms of plasticity from EBSD measurement was near what we observed from the computations that we performed. So in terms of cumulative plastic strength plus after 100 cycles, we clearly see that we have much more plasticity developing in the torsion case than the other case, in particular. When you are in tension, you have very low plasticity. If we globally compare the different loading cases, the very thing that you see is that when you do such microstructural computation, is that you see that grain boundaries are effectively some sources of plasticity due to the elastic mismatch between the grains. So it's not very surprising to see that at very low stress level you are triggering the plasticity of the grain boundary, because that's exactly where you have all those stresses due to the elastic mismatch. However, when you go to much larger plasticity, this effect of the grain boundary is vanishing a little bit, and you go into another level of plasticity development that allow you to have a well-defined slip activity within the whole grain. And when you look at the tendency where you have multiple slip occurrence in the high cycle fatigue range, you see that it corresponds to cases. So this is the sensitivity from tension to torsion, much higher multiple flexibility, much higher cumulative plastic strain. Here, the same case for when you have a predominant axial stress. When you go down to the right, you increase the phase, you lower the plasticity level, and you lower the multiple strain. And for such loadings where you have a predominant torsional stress compared to the actual stress, the phase modifies slightly the plastic activity, but not that much. And effectively, that's what we observe in terms of multiple slip activity, but a little effect here, but not much. And the grain boundary effect is completely related to the fact that when you have low plasticity levels, so grain boundary acts as stress concentrator and is triggering the plasticity, where you have more well-developed plasticity, this effect is vanishing. So, to conclude on those observations, we consider that at low stress levels, and probably not just the case for 10 to the 6 cycles, but even if you go to very high cycle fatigue or such ranges, when you are near the PSB threshold, the grain boundary effect is predominating the development of plasticity. At the endurance limit level, in the central zone, the grain boundary effect is very low due to larger plasticity development. And significant plasticity development is observed for torsion and multi-axial loading, and that explains why you have multiplicity or more predominant multiplicity of the slip activity. However, the single slip is still predominant for crack initiation. Multiple slip may concern up to 20 to 30% of the crack initiation cases, so that the single slip hypothesis in such material, that is a quite fictional material, is still reasonable to model its static life in the multi-axial loads. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.